The first drops of rain hit my father's casket as Laura's words cut through the silence. You abandoned us when we needed you most. How dare you show up now? My name is Alice, and I hadn't seen my sister in 3 years until today. The funeral brought us together like a cruel cosmic joke, forcing us to stand side by side while our father was lowered into the ground. I kept my eyes fixed on the polished mahogany, trying to ignore the whispers from distant relatives and family friends. The sculptor who chose art over family, the daughter who broke her father's heart. I'd heard it all before. Laura, please, I whispered. Not here. She turned to face me, mascara running down her cheeks. When then, Alice? When you're back in New York, hiding in your fancy studio? Or maybe after another 3 years of silence? Aunt Rose stepped between us, her weathered hands reaching for both our shoulders. Girls, your father wouldn't want this. Our father wanted a lot of things, Laura spat. Like his eldest daughter to join the family business instead of running away to play with clay. The small crowd of mourners shifted uncomfortably. I caught Ricky, Laura's partner, moving forward to intervene, but Rose held up her hand to stop him. I didn't run away, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I followed my dreams. Dad just couldn't what? Accept that his daughter was too selfish to think about anyone but herself? Laura's voice cracked. While you were living your dreams, I was here, taking care of him when Mom died, managing the company, dealing with everything you left behind. The rain fell harder now, umbrellas popping open around us like black flowers. I remained still, letting the water soak through my dress. You chose that role, Laura. I offered to help. Help? She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed across the cemetery. Your idea of help was throwing money at problems from a safe distance? Did you even visit him in the hospital? The truth stung more than the rain. I hadn't known he was sick until it was too late. The call came from Rose, not Laura, telling me Dad had hours left. By the time I reached the hospital, he was already gone. That's enough, Rose said firmly. Everyone, please give the family some privacy. The crowd dispersed quickly, leaving only Rose, Laura, Ricky, and me. The family lawyer, Stephen, lingered at the edge of the gathering, clutching his briefcase like a shield. There's something you both need to know, Rose said, her voice barely audible above the rain. About your father's will. Laura wiped her face, smearing more mascara. We're doing this now? Yes, now. Rose's tone left no room for argument. Stephen, please. The lawyer approached cautiously, opening his umbrella over us. Perhaps we should move somewhere dry? No, I said, surprising myself. Here, let's do it here. Stephen cleared his throat, producing an envelope from his briefcase. Your father made some unusual changes to his will in his final weeks. Laura's head snapped up. Changes? What changes? I think, Rose interrupted, we should discuss this over tea, at my house. There are things you both need to see. I noticed her hand trembling as she reached for the envelope, and something in her expression made my stomach twist. She knew something beyond the will. Rose, I started, but she shook her head. Not here, dear. Some truths need a proper setting. She glanced at Laura, who had gone pale. And some secrets have waited long enough. I don't have time for this, Laura muttered, but I caught the fear in her voice. Ricky and I have arrangements to make. Cancel them, Rose said sharply. This can't wait. Both of you, my house. 2 hours. She turned to leave, then paused. And Laura, bring those papers from your father's study, the ones you think nobody knows about. Laura's face drained of what little color remained. She grabbed Ricky's arm and practically dragged him away, leaving me standing in the rain with more questions than answers. Stephen handed me a business card. Call me if you need anything clarified, about the will or other matters. As I watched him walk away, Rose's words echoed in my mind. Some secrets have waited long enough. I looked down at Dad's grave, fresh dirt already turning to mud. What didn't you tell me? I whispered to the headstone. What didn't any of you tell me? The rain was my only answer, but somehow I knew. In 2 hours, everything I thought I knew about my family was going to change. And judging by Laura's reaction, Not everyone was ready for the truth to come out. I turned away from the grave, my shoes sinking slightly in the wet grass. Whatever came next, one thing was certain. I wasn't the only one who'd been keeping secrets. I found Laura in the parking lot of Rose's Victorian house, gripping her steering wheel but making no move to get out. Through the rain-streaked windshield, our eyes met. She looked away first. Ricky wasn't with her. Interesting. I knocked on her window. She jumped, then reluctantly rolled it down. "Before we go in there," I said, "we need to talk." "About what? How you'll swoop in and try to fix everything with your money again?" I pulled an envelope from my coat. "Actually, yes. I know about the debt, Laura." Her face went from angry to terrified in an instant. "What are you talking about?" "The company's not doing well. Hasn't been for a while." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "I can help. No strings attached." She threw the car door open, nearly knocking me over. "You had no right to look into the company's finances." I didn't have to look far. The rumors are all over town. Small businesses talk, Laura, and they're saying Dixon Manufacturing is months away from bankruptcy. "Shut up!" She glanced nervously at Rose's house. "You don't know anything." "I know enough." I held out the envelope. "There's a check inside, enough to cover the immediate debts and keep things running while you restructure." Laura stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "I don't want your charity." "It's not charity, it's family." "Family?" She laughed bitterly. "Where was family when Dad needed you? When I needed you?" "I'm here now." "Yeah, with your checkbook open. Must be nice being able to throw money around while the rest of us struggle." I dropped my hand, envelope still clutched tight. "You know what? I worked hard for this money. Every sculpture, every gallery showing, every commission. I earned it. Just because it's not the future Dad planned doesn't make it less valid." "At least he had a plan for you." Laura's voice cracked. "All I got was support your sister's dreams and keep the family legacy alive. Do you know what that legacy's worth now? Nothing." A light flicked on in Rose's front window. Laura fell silent, wrapping her arms around herself. "Take the money," I said softly. "Not for me, not for you, for Dad's employees. They don't deserve to lose everything because we can't get past our issues." Laura's hand trembled as she reached for the envelope. Just as her fingers brushed it, Rose's front door opened. "Girls!" Rose called out. "Stop skulking in the rain and come inside." Laura snatched her hand back like she'd been burned. "This conversation isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning." Inside, Rose's house smelled of Earl Grey tea and old books. She led us to her study, where 3 cups waited on her antique desk. Next to them sat a worn leather folder I recognized from Dad's office. "Sit," Rose commanded, taking her place behind the desk. Laura perched on the edge of her chair, clutching her purse. "Where's Stephen?" "He'll be here soon." Rose fixed her gaze on Laura. "Did you bring the papers?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Rose's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me, child. Not today." The silence stretched until Laura finally reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. She placed it on the desk like it was made of glass. "Before Stephen arrives," Rose said, opening the leather folder, "there's something you both need to see." She removed a photograph, yellowed with age. "Your mother took this the day before she died." I leaned forward. The photo showed Dad in his office, but he wasn't alone. Laura stood beside him, holding what looked like legal documents. They were both smiling, but something about their expressions made my skin crawl. "What is this?" I asked. "The beginning," Rose replied. "The day Laura agreed to help your father rewrite his will, the first time." Laura shot to her feet. "Don't!" "6 months before he died," Rose continued, "he changed it again, without telling you." "I said don't!" Laura's voice rose to a shout. "Why?" I looked between them. "What's in the will?" A knock at the door made us all jump. Rose stood slowly. "That'll be Stephen," she said. "And Laura, those papers you brought? They're forgeries. Your father told me everything before he died." Laura swayed on her feet, face ashen. "I need to leave." "No," Rose's voice was steel. "You need to stay and face what you've done. Both of you do." As Rose went to let Stephen in, I stared at the photograph, at those smiling faces hiding God knows what secrets. Laura sank back into her chair, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I wasn't sure if she was talking to me, to Rose, or to the ghosts of our parents. But I had a feeling I was about to find out exactly what she was sorry for. Stephen laid out the documents on Rose's desk with methodical precision. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, making the windows rattle. "The original will," he said, pointing to the first document, "left everything split equally between Alice and Laura." He glanced at Laura, who wouldn't meet his eyes. "This version was signed 3 years ago." "And the new one?" I asked. He pulled out another document. "Signed 2 weeks before your father's death. It's significantly different." Laura's hands were shaking so badly she spilled her tea. Rose quietly handed her a napkin. "Your father discovered some concerning transactions," Stephen continued. "Money being moved from company accounts to private ones. At first, he assumed it was embezzlement by an employee." "Stop," Laura whispered. "But it wasn't an employee, was it?" Rose's voice was gentle but firm. "Show them the transfers, Stephen." He produced a stack of bank statements. My stomach lurched as I saw the numbers, hundreds of thousands of dollars, methodically drained from the company over 2 years. "Laura?" I could barely get her name out. "What did you do?" "What I had to," she burst out. "The company was failing. Dad wouldn't listen. He kept insisting everything was fine, that his way of doing things still worked, but it didn't." "So you stole from him?" The words tasted bitter. "I borrowed. I was going to pay it back. I just needed to modernize the factory, update our systems. Dad was stuck in the 1980s, and we were losing contracts left and right." Stephen cleared his throat. "According to these records, only about 20% of the money went to company improvements." Laura seemed to shrink in her chair. "The rest? There were other debts." "Gambling," Rose said quietly. "Just like your mother." My head snapped up. "What?" "Why do you think she was driving so fast that night?" Rose's eyes were full of old pain. "She'd lost big. Was rushing to the casino to try to win it back. Your father covered it up, told everyone it was just an accident." "And you," I turned to Laura, fury rising in my throat. "You knew about this. All these years. You let me think." "I let you think what Dad wanted you to think," Laura shot back. "He protected Mom's memory. Protected all of us. I was just trying to protect him too." "By stealing his money?" "By saving his company. And I would have if he hadn't." She trailed off, looking at the new will. Stephen picked up the document. "When your father discovered the truth, he made changes. The company goes to Alice." The room went silent except for Laura's sharp intake of breath. "All of it," Stephen continued, "along with the house and majority of his assets. Laura receives a small trust, to be managed by an independent trustee." "He cut me out," Laura's voice was hollow, "after everything I sacrificed." "Sacrificed?" I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. "You stole from him. And all those times you accused me of abandoning the family, of not being there, you were just covering your own guilt. I was there, every single day, watching his health decline, watching our legacy crumble. While you gambled it away," I was shouting now. "Did Ricky know? Is that why he's not here?" Laura's face crumpled. "I told him this morning. He left." Rose pulled another envelope from the folder. "There's more." "How can there possibly be more?" I asked. "The letter your father wrote to Alice," Rose said. "The one Laura intercepted 3 years ago." Laura went completely still. "You knew about that?" "I knew everything, child. I was your father's confidant long before I was your aunt." My hands were trembling as I took the envelope. The letter inside was dated just before I'd opened my first gallery show, the show I'd begged my family to attend. "He was proud of you," Rose said softly. "He wanted to tell you in person, but Laura convinced him you'd rejected the family, that you didn't want contact." The words on the page blurred through my tears. Dad's handwriting, telling me he was sorry, that he understood now, that he wanted to see my work, to be part of my life again. I never got this letter, I said, looking at Laura. You made sure of that. I was angry, she whispered. You got to leave, to follow your dreams. I was trapped here trying to fix everything. When Dad started talking about reconciling, about maybe even investing in your gallery, I couldn't stand it. So you isolated him, fed him lies about me not wanting to visit, all while stealing from him. Thunder crashed again, closer this time. Laura buried her face in her hands. The company is yours now, she said, voice muffled. You won. Are you happy? I looked at the letter again, at the love and regret in every word. Then at the bank statements showing my sister's betrayal. Finally, at Rose, who watched us with centuries of family secrets in her eyes. No, I said. I'm not happy, but I'm not finished either. Not by a long shot. The rain beat against the windows like it was trying to get in, to wash away all our sins. But some stains, I was learning, run too deep for rain. The factory floor was eerily quiet as I walked through it the next morning. Dust-covered machinery stood like sleeping giants, and the few workers present watched me with wary eyes. They knew who I was, the prodigal daughter, returned to claim her inheritance. I found Laura in Dad's old office, frantically shoving papers into a box. Planning to destroy more evidence? I asked from the doorway. She jumped, nearly dropping the box. I'm collecting my personal items. Like bank statements? Forged documents? You got what you wanted, she snapped. The company's yours. Just let me leave with some dignity. I stepped into the office, closing the door behind me. Sit down, Laura. We need to talk about the real numbers. What do you mean? I spent all night going through the books. The money you took, it's not even close to what's missing. She sank into Dad's chair, and for a moment she looked so much like him it hurt. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't. I slapped a folder onto the desk. The casino debts were just the beginning, weren't they? There's more. A lot more. Laura's face crumpled. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Because right now I'm looking at a company that's not just failing, it's being bled dry. And somehow the bleeding got worse after Dad got sick. I had to protect him, Laura's voice cracked. He was so weak, in and out of hospitals. If he'd known how bad things really were. So you lied, covered it up, took more money to hide the money you'd already taken. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. It spiraled. Every time I thought I could fix it, something else would go wrong. The suppliers raised their prices. The equipment kept breaking down, and the gambling. I couldn't stop. Like Mom couldn't stop. I didn't mean to become her. Laura wiped her eyes. I just wanted to be the good daughter, the one who stayed, the one who kept everything together. I pulled up a chair and sat across from her. Show me everything. No more lies. For the next hour, Laura laid it all out. The hidden accounts, the maxed-out credit cards in the company's name, the loans from people who didn't show up in any official records. $2 million, I finally said. You're in debt for $2 million. Some of it's to people you don't want to keep waiting. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out another folder. They've been calling, sending messages. I opened the folder and felt my blood run cold. Photos of Laura's house, of her car, of her walking to work. Have they threatened you? She nodded. They gave me until the end of the month. That's why I was so angry at the funeral. I thought maybe Dad's insurance would cover it, but then the will. Jesus, Laura, why didn't you tell me sooner? Tell you what? That I'm not just a thief, I'm a failure? That I gambled away our father's legacy and got in bed with loan sharks? She laughed bitterly. You were the smart one. You got out. I stayed and destroyed everything. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the factory floor. Dad's employees, my employees now, going about their work, unaware their jobs were hanging by a thread. That check I offered you yesterday, I said. It wouldn't have been enough, would it? Not even close. I turned back to her. If I help you, really help you, things have to change. No more lies, no more gambling, and you get help, real help, professional help. Hope flickered across her face, quickly replaced by suspicion. Why would you do that, after everything I did to you? Because you're my sister, and because Dad loved this place. These people don't deserve to lose their jobs because of our family's demons. I don't deserve your help. No, I agreed. But those workers out there, they deserve a chance. And maybe we both deserve a chance to do better than our parents did. Laura looked down at her hands. Ricky left, said he couldn't trust me anymore. Can you blame him? No, I'm alone now. Really alone. I walked back to the desk and picked up the threatening photos. No, you're not. But Laura, this is your last chance. One more lie, one more betrayal, and I'm done. Understand? She nodded slowly. What are you going to do? First, we're going to call these loan sharks. Then we're calling an addiction specialist. And then... I looked around Dad's office at the decades of history built into its walls. Then we're going to save this company. Together. Why? Laura whispered. Why would you trust me again? I thought about Dad's letter, about his regret over letting pride and stubbornness tear our family apart. Because sometimes, I said, the only way past broken trust is to risk being broken again. Thunder rumbled outside, an echo of yesterday's storm. But this time it felt less like an omen and more like applause. The addiction counselor's office was painted a soft blue that was probably meant to be calming. It wasn't working. Laura sat beside me, fidgeting with her sleeve, while a man named Marcus reviewed her file. Daily gambling for the past 3 years, he said, looking up. Started with cards, escalated to sports betting. Laura nodded. I thought I could control it. System betting, you know. It seemed so logical. That's what makes gambling addiction so insidious, Marcus said. The illusion of control. He turned to me. And you're committed to supporting her recovery? Yes, I said. But there's something else you should know. Laura's head snapped up. Alice, don't... She's being threatened by loan sharks. I pulled out my phone, showing him the photos. We need more than just addiction counseling. We need protection. Marcus's expression darkened. This is beyond my scope. You need law enforcement. No police, Laura said quickly. These people, they're dangerous. More dangerous than letting them threaten you? I asked. Before she could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Rose. Come to my house. Now. Bring Laura. Found something in your father's study. We have to go, I told Marcus, standing up. But we'll be back tomorrow. He handed Laura a card. 24-hour helpline. Use it if you feel the urge. Outside, Laura grabbed my arm. You can't tell anyone else about the threats. Why not? What aren't you telling me? Her face went pale. They know things about Dad's company, things that could hurt people. What things? Please, Alice, just trust me on this. I yanked my arm away. Trust you? After everything? Fine. She looked around the parking lot nervously. Dad, he wasn't always careful about safety regulations. To save money, there were accidents. What kind of accidents? The kind that got covered up. With money. Lots of money. My stomach lurched. That's what some of the missing funds were for? Hush money? She nodded. If this gets out, the company's finished, and people could go to jail. Dad's dead. He can't go to jail. No, but the board members who knew? The managers who helped cover it up? She laughed bitterly. Some of them still work there. I leaned against my car, feeling sick. So the loan sharks know about this? They know enough to make it a problem. That's why I couldn't go to the police. That's why I kept borrowing more. My phone buzzed again. Rose. Hurry, important. Get in, I told Laura. We're not done with this conversation, but Rose is waiting. The drive to Rose's house was tense. When we arrived, we found her in the study with a large metal box open on her desk. Look what I found behind your father's bookshelf, she said without preamble. Inside the box were stacks of papers, photos, and USB drives. Rose held up one photo. It showed Dad shaking hands with a man in an expensive suit. That's Michael, Laura whispered. The main loan shark. This goes deeper than gambling debts, Rose said. Your father was involved with these people for years. Look at the dates. The photo was from 15 years ago. I picked up another, Dad with the same man, plus others, at what looked like a private club. They own half the casinos in the state, Laura said, but that's just their legal business. Rose pulled out a manila envelope. Your father kept records of everything: the accidents, the payoffs, the connections to organized crime. Insurance, he called it. Insurance against what? I asked. Against them, Laura said. He knew too much, so they couldn't touch him, but when he got sick, she trailed off. They saw an opportunity, I finished, and you walked right into it. Rose spread more documents across her desk. They've been waiting years to get control of the factory, its location, its connections. It's perfect for their needs. What needs? Laura looked like she might throw up. Money laundering, drug distribution. The factory's right on the state line, perfect for... A crash from downstairs cut her off. Rose moved faster than I'd ever seen her, slamming the metal box shut and shoving it into my hands. Back door, she hissed. Now! Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. Laura grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the hall. Behind us, Rose's calm voice carried, Can I help you, gentlemen? A man's voice responded, Where are they, old woman? We ran, through the kitchen, out the back door, across Rose's garden. A shout followed us. There! My car! I gasped, but Laura yanked me the other way. They'll expect that, through the alley. We ran until our lungs burned, finally stopping in a small park several blocks away. In the distance, sirens wailed. Rose, I panted, we have to... She'll be fine, Laura said. She's tougher than anyone knows, but we need to get somewhere safe, now. I looked down at the metal box in my hands, then at my sister's terrified face. I know a place, I said. But first, tell me everything. No more secrets. Laura nodded, still catching her breath. Everything, I promise. But Alice, after this, there's no going back. The sirens grew closer. Whatever came next, one thing was clear. Dad's insurance policy had just become our problem. My studio loft downtown wasn't much, but its security system was top-notch, a necessity when you store valuable sculptures. Laura paced while I locked up and drew the blinds. Rose just texted, I said. She's fine. Says the police came before anything happened. They won't hurt her, Laura said. They want these. She gestured at the box we'd set on my work table. And they want us to know they want them. I opened the box and started spreading documents across the table. Tell me about Michael. He approached me 6 months ago. Said he knew about my gambling debts, offered to help. She laughed bitterly. Said Dad would have wanted him to look out for me. And you believed him? I believed I was desperate. She picked up one of the photos. What I didn't know was how long they'd been waiting, planning. My phone rang. Stephen. I put it on speaker. Are you both safe? He asked without preamble. Yes, I said. What's happening? The police are at Rose's, but these men, they're well connected. This goes way beyond local law enforcement. We know, Laura said. We found Dad's insurance box. Silence on the line. Then, open the blue folder, third from the left. I found it and pulled out a stack of papers. My hands started shaking as I read. These are deeds, I said, to properties all over the state, all owned by shell companies, but all connected to Michael's organization, Stephen finished. Your father discovered their entire money laundering network, had proof of everything. That's why they wanted the factory, Laura whispered. It wasn't just about location. They needed to silence him. And when he got sick, I said, they thought their chance had come. But he changed the will, gave everything to me instead of Laura. Because he knew I was compromised, Laura said quietly. He was protecting the company, protecting his evidence. A sharp knock at my door made us both jump. Through the peephole, I saw Ricky. What's he doing here? I hissed at Laura. I called him, Stephen said through the phone. He needs to hear this too. I let Ricky in. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes red. He wouldn't look at Laura. Show him, Stephen said. I handed Ricky the deeds. His face went from confused to shocked to angry. The construction contracts, he said. All those new casinos being built? My company's been bidding on them. Let me guess, Laura said. Michael's people approached you? He nodded. Said they could guarantee we'd win the bids. All we had to do was adjust some numbers, help move some money around. Did you agree? I asked. No, but now I understand why they were so interested, and why they wouldn't take no for an answer. Laura made a small, broken sound. They were using me to get to everyone. The factory, Ricky's company. We need to take this to the FBI, Stephen said. No, Laura and Ricky said simultaneously. They'll kill us, Laura added. They'll kill you anyway, Stephen countered, unless you give them what they want. I looked at the evidence spread across my table. Dad's insurance policy, years of careful documentation, proof of crimes that could bring down an entire organization. What if, I said slowly, we give them exactly what they want? What do you mean? Laura asked. They want the factory, the perfect distribution point, the perfect cover, so let's give it to them. Alice, no, Stephen started, but I cut him off. Let me finish. We give them what they want, but we control how they get it, and who's watching when they take it. Understanding dawned on Ricky's face. A trap. We need time to copy everything, I said, to get it to the right people. Then we make them think they've won. Laura stepped closer to the table. They'll be watching us. Good. Let them watch. Let them think we're desperate, scrambling. I turned to Ricky. Will you help? He finally looked at Laura, really looked at her. This isn't just about the evidence anymore, is it? This is about making things right. She met his gaze. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to fix it. It's dangerous, Stephen warned through the phone. Everything's dangerous now, I said. But Dad spent years building this case. We're going to finish it. Another text from Rose appeared. Whatever you're planning, remember, your father played the long game. So should you. I looked at Laura, then Ricky, then the mountain of evidence between us. 3 days, I said. We need to make them think we're cracking, that we'll give them everything just to make this go away. And then? Laura asked. And then we show them what happens when you threaten our family? Ricky picked up one of the photos. Your father was a smart man. Yes, I said, thinking of the will, of how he'd orchestrated everything even from his deathbed. He really was. The question was, could we be smart enough to finish what he started? The factory parking lot was empty except for 3 black SUVs. Michael stepped out of the middle one, exactly as he appeared in Dad's old photos. Expensive suit, cold smile, dead eyes. Ladies, he said, spreading his arms like we were old friends. Shall we do this inside? Laura's hand trembled as she unlocked the front door. I carried Dad's metal box, making sure they saw it. Behind us, Michael's men followed silently. The factory floor was dark, machines silent. Our footsteps echoed as we headed to Dad's office. I must say, Michael said, I'm glad you finally came to your senses. This could have been messier. We just want this over, I said, setting the box on Dad's desk. He smiled. Of course you do. Family businesses can be such a burden. He turned to Laura. Isn't that right? She wouldn't meet his eyes. Just take it and go. Oh, I'll take it. Along with the factory, of course. The paperwork is ready, just needs your signatures. One of his men placed a document folder on the desk. I opened it, pretending to read. You understand, Michael continued. We'll need the digital copies, too. All of them. There's a USB drive in the box, I said. Everything's on it. He nodded to another man, who stepped forward to open the box. The moment his hands touched it, the factory's emergency lights flashed on. Bright, blinding. FBI, hands where we can see them. Agents poured in from every entrance. Michael's smile vanished as he reached inside his jacket. I wouldn't, said a familiar voice. Stephen stepped out from behind a machine, badge displayed. 15 years undercover, watching you, waiting. Did you really think this would be so easy? Michael's eyes darted between us. You little. Choose your next words carefully, Stephen cut in. They're being recorded. Laura grabbed my arm as agents surrounded us, weapons drawn. Michael's men raised their hands, but he stood still, that cold smile returning. You think this ends here? He asked. You think your father's little insurance policy will protect you? No, I said, but the last 3 days of recorded conversations will. His smile faltered. What? Every meeting, Laura said quietly. Every threat, every detail about your operation. We got it all. Impossible. We checked. The sculptures, I interrupted, in my studio. Each one hollow, each one containing a recording device. Art's funny that way. Nobody looks twice at it. Stephen stepped closer. Your organization's finished, Michael. We have everything. The money laundering, the drug routes, the bribes, all of it. And the best part? I added. Dad's box? It's empty. Has been for years. You were so focused on finding his evidence, you missed ours. The rage that crossed his face made Laura step back, but I held my ground. You threatened my family, I said. Tried to steal our legacy, used my sister's addiction against her. Did you really think we'd just give up? Cuff them, Stephen ordered. As agents moved in, Michael locked eyes with me. Your father was right about one thing, he said. You are the smart one. But smart people should know. There's always someone bigger, someone higher up. This isn't over. Yes, said another voice. It is. Rose walked onto the factory floor, accompanied by a distinguished-looking man in a suit. Director, Stephen said, straightening. Hello, Michael, the FBI director said. Remember me? We played golf last month at your casino, right before you tried to bribe me. Michael's face went ashen. Take them, the director ordered. As they led Michael and his men away, Laura collapsed against me, sobbing. It's okay, I whispered. It's done. Not quite, Rose said. She turned to Laura. There's still the matter of your actions, the theft, the gambling. I'll take responsibility, Laura said, wiping her eyes. I'll pay it back, get help, whatever it takes. You already have, Stephen said. Your cooperation these past 3 days. The directors agreed to immunity, provided you continue treatment and make restitution. The company will help with that, I added. We're family, remember? Ricky emerged from where he'd been hiding with the FBI tech team. The recordings are secure, all of them. Laura looked at him uncertainly. He crossed to her and took her hand. I'm proud of you, he said softly, for facing this, for helping make it right. I don't deserve... Let me decide what you deserve, he interrupted, starting with forgiveness. The factory's morning shift workers began arriving, stopping in confusion at the FBI vehicles outside. Back to work, I called out. Everything's fine. Rose touched my arm. Your father would be proud, both of you. I looked at Laura, who was still holding Ricky's hand, then at the empty box that had caused so much chaos. Dad's insurance policy wasn't in that box, I said. It was us, working together. That's what he was protecting all along. Outside, the sun was rising. Through the factory windows, its light caught the dust motes in the air, making them dance like golden stars, like hope made visible. The autumn wind scattered leaves across Dad's headstone as I placed fresh flowers beside it. Laura knelt next to me, adding her own bouquet. The factory hit record production numbers this week, she said, brushing dirt from the granite. That modernization program you approved is really working. Our program, I corrected. You're still the one who knows manufacturing. I just provide the sculptures for the lobby. She smiled, a real smile, not the haunted one I'd seen so often before. Speaking of which, that new piece you're working on, the one with the empty box? Yeah, I think Dad would have appreciated the irony. A car pulled up nearby. Rose stepped out, followed by Ricky carrying a picnic basket. Thought we might have lunch, Rose called out. Share some news. We spread a blanket on the grass beside Dad's grave. Rose poured coffee from a thermos while Ricky distributed sandwiches. The last of Michael's associates took a plea deal this morning, he said. Stephen called to let us know. Laura squeezed his hand. So it's really over? The criminal part, yes. Rose sipped her coffee. The healing part, that's ongoing. 6 months sober, Laura said quietly. My counselor says I'm making good progress. You are, I agreed. The company books prove it. She pulled an envelope from her jacket. Which is why I wanted to show you this. I've been working with the accountant, setting aside part of my salary. It's not much, but it's a start on paying back what I took. I pushed the envelope back toward her. Keep it. Put it toward the wedding. Her eyes widened. How did you? Ricky grinned. I may have asked your sister's permission first. Wanted to do things right this time. You knew? Laura turned to me. And you didn't say anything? Some secrets, I said, are the good kind. Rose raised her coffee cup. To new beginnings. And old wisdom, I added, touching my cup to hers. Dad taught us more than we realized. He did, Laura agreed. About family, about trust. She paused. About forgiveness. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small package. Which reminds me, I found this in his desk last week. Laura unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a worn leather wallet. Mom's wallet, she whispered. From the accident. Look inside. She opened it with trembling fingers. There, behind the driver's license, was a crumpled betting slip, a winning ticket never cashed. She was coming home, I said softly. Not going to the casino. She'd won, and she was coming home to tell Dad she was done gambling. Rose found the letter explaining everything in Dad's papers. Laura traced the ticket with her finger. Why didn't he tell us? Because, Rose said, he wanted you to find your own way back, both of you, in your own time. The wind picked up, sending more leaves dancing across the cemetery. One landed on Dad's headstone, bright red like a splash of paint on canvas. The factory's annual charity gala is next month, I said. I was thinking we could auction off some of my pieces, use the money to start a gambling addiction support program. In Mom's name, Laura added, and Dad's. Perfect. Ricky wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Though we might want to wait until after the honeymoon. About that, Rose interjected, I have something for you both. She handed each of us an envelope. Inside mine was a key. Laura held up an identical one. To the lake house, Rose explained. Your parents' favorite place. I think it's time it belonged to their daughters. Together? Laura asked, looking at me. Together, I confirmed. Though maybe we can update that awful 70s decor? She laughed, a full, free sound that echoed across the cemetery. Only if you let me handle the kitchen renovation. Your artistic taste doesn't extend to appliances. Deal. We finished our lunch as the sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across Dad's grave. Before leaving, I touched the headstone one last time. We're okay, Dad, I whispered. All of us. Laura linked her arm through mine as we walked back to our cars. You know what I just realized? This is the first time we've all been here together when nobody was lying about anything. Truth looks good on us, I said. Yes, Rose called from behind us. It does. At the parking lot, Laura hugged me tight. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me. That's what big sisters are for, I hugged her back. Even when they're being stubborn artists who run away to New York. Even then, she agreed. We drove away separately, but headed to the same place. The factory, our legacy, our future. Not perfect, but ours. Together. The truth, it turns out, was Dad's final gift to us. Not the empty box, not the evidence, but the chance to find our way back to each other. To find our way home.